Those of you that know me know that I'm not a real big sports fan. About the only time that I get interested in going to sports is if one of my friends is playing or one of my friends' kids are playing, and then I want to go and support them. But most of the time, that's not my first choice in how to spend an evening. The one sport that I find interesting, though, is MMA, which stands for Mixed Martial Arts. And those of you that aren't familiar with MMA, it started about 27 years ago as kind of an experiment called UFC 1. And the basic idea was to pair up masters of different martial arts into the same ring and see which one was actually better. It was more of an experiment to find out which martial arts was better and not necessarily which athlete was better. Today, it's kind of changed meanings though. Now, when people say mixed martial arts, what they're meaning is that the athletes are mixing different aspects of various martial arts into one style. But they've learned which styles and which techniques from the different styles from these multiple years now of mixing them up. And I don't like violence. I don't want you to misunderstand that and think I enjoy watching violence. I don't. I don't like seeing people get hurt, and I don't enjoy the blood. But here's what I do like about MMA. I can't think of very many other sports, or any other sport really, that has humbled so many men. We as humans are not humble. And in general, sports don't typically help with this. In a ball game, it is too easy and too common for people to make excuses. They say, well, we lost because it was a bad call or it was a bad referee. And they walk away saying and believing that they should have won. That's not so in MMA. It is obvious to everyone why you lost. The other guy was just playing better than you. Men walk into that ring proud and they walk out humble. That's not necessarily a bad thing. More men probably need to go through that experience. And recently, I just came across a video, so I watched it on YouTube, from a man named Ramsey Dewey. Now, I never watched any of his videos before, don't know anything about him, but he had a very insightful video. And in this video, he was trying to answer a specific question. In China, there's been this rash of traditional kung fu masters that are just getting beaten by MMA fighters in the Chinese MMA. It's happening specifically in China. So his question was, why is this happening time and time and time again? Why don't they stop? And his answer was two parts. The first part was that the traditional kung fu fighters that are losing, they think too highly of their own skill. They're proud. And the second part was that these traditional kung fu fighters have not studied their history. The lesson that they're learning now the hard way in the ring is the same lesson that the rest of the world learned almost 30 years ago in the United States through the UFC tournaments. So to sum it up, they're losing because of their pride and their ignorance. They walk into the ring with a higher view of their own skill and their own style than they should have. They are unaware of how their opponent fights and the history of the sport. And they promptly get punched in the face and knocked out. My oldest son was watching the commentary with me, and afterwards he made the observation. He goes, so if you're proud and ignorant, you'll get punched in the face. Like, yeah, that's a pretty good summary of life in general. So remember, I say this a lot. God is holy and we are not. Someday we will be humbled before him. And it's much better to do that now than before Judgment Day. I've heard people speak of what they will do, what they will say to God when they stand before Him on Judgment Day. That right there tells me that they don't know who God is. We will not be standing before God when He judges us. We will be groveling before Him on our faces. And we're not going to be scared because He's so mean and awful. We're going to be scared because He is so holy, and we will realize that we're not. We will see our sin and our iniquities clearly for the first time, and then we will realize what God's justice must now demand of us. And that will be the most fearful event in your eternal existence.